will be taken and one will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be always acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. My apologies to the country music fans among us, but I have a conflicted relationship with country music, especially if it's a really twangy type. While not liking the music style, I do love some of the titles, with my favorite one being, "My wife ran off with my best friend, and I miss him." Also, I find country music often addresses life issues far better than other types of music. For example, Tim McCraw's 2004 Grammy Award-winning "Live Like You Were Dying" tells of a young man learning of his father's imminent death from a brain tumor and asking him what he did as the finality of his approaching death sank in. His father responded, "I went skydiving, Rocky Mountain climbing, and went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. I loved deeper, spoke sweeter, and gave forgiveness I had been denying. I was finally the husband that most of the time I wasn't, and became a friend would like to have. I lived like tomorrow was a gift, and you've got eternity to think about what you did do with it, and what you did do with it." His father then offered to his son, "Someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying." As a priest, I've had the blessing of walking the journey with many as they knowingly pass through the final days of their life. Not all, but many accept the nearness of their death and approach it without anxiety and with profound awareness of what's most important. Similarly, many who have survived cancer or heart attack understand the true fragility of life and have a deeper appreciation for the life before them. As many of you know, for 3 years I worked with parishes leveled by Hurricane Katrina and individuals who lost every single possession they owned. Regrettably, many of them were overwhelmed with loss and grief. But those who recovered and most positively moved forward were those who responded, "I lost things, but doing so has given me a great appreciation for what is most important and where I find my deepest joy." Some of you may remember Diane and I walked the Camino 3 years ago. Diane does not give me permission to tell her story, so I tell this because it is my story. Due to dehydration and sudden drop in blood pressure, Diane passed out on part of the trail where we were over 2 miles from the nearest road and over 15 miles from the nearest village, and where no other pilgrims were passing. Not only was she unconscious for over 5 minutes, which seemed like hours, her breathing became so shallow and her pulse so weak, I could not tell if she was breathing and could feel no pulse. This is my story. And because Diane is now sitting behind me, I realize I totally overreacted. But I feared that she had died. My story is, as a result of that incident, I approached everything after that on our Camino pilgrimage very differently. No matter what happened, everything after that was grace. Even though we all know Diane's bright smile that lights up a room as she enters, I can assure you after you've walked 20 miles in the blazing sun, arriving in the village where we are starving and the first 5 restaurants are closed, and both of us are pushed to our limits, you may not encounter that smile. Still, those were moments of grace because I understood the alternative. Am I still guided by this sense of grace today? As a priest, I should say sure, but I'd be lying if I said yes. However, when I have flashbacks of kneeling over Diane on that trail, I still truly understand what is most important, and that each day with her is a day of grace. A strange topic on the heels of Thanksgiving and only a few weeks before Christmas. After all, the secular world is in the frenzy of Christmas shopping and putting up Christmas trees, and non-liturgical churches are singing Christmas carols and talking about the birth of the sweet baby Jesus, but not we Episcopalians. We and others who follow the traditions, who follow the Christian year, instead, we celebrate a new church year, and this first Sunday of Advent greets us with scriptures that read like the bumper stickers we sometimes encounter. Warning, when the rapture comes, this car will be empty. However, the one I actually prefer is the one that reads, when the rapture comes, I'll be driving your car. Just as spending a lifetime only preparing for the future or living a purposeless life failed to live an authentic life, so to be preoccupied with the baby Jesus or with gloating over those we think will be left behind, both fail to understand the gospel, and particularly today's reading from Matthew. Yes, everything changed because, as John the evangelist will tell us on Christmas Day, Jesus dwelt among us. Or as translated literally, pitched his tent among us. Literally became one of us. But the story tells us, or does not end with the first coming. No, that's only the infancy story. No, Advent instead reminds us it is always Advent. And we live perpetually between the already and the not yet. Well, Christ came in a specific time and place. Some 2,000 years ago, Christ continues to come to us, to the church, and to the world. Christ's light continues to shine in the darkness of our own hearts, in the dark places of the church, in the pitch-black corners of the world. So we believe, we long for God without ceasing, and we hope. Advent reminds us we wait as a pregnant woman waits, not passively, but waiting in which everything is being transformed. Just as living as if we are dying, Advent invites us into a readiness to turn all into a new dimension of living. Advent blooms resplendent with the birth of Jesus, his ministry, his passion, death, and resurrection. Over time, it continues to blossom and unfold to be born in us. The Word is enfleshed again and again within the body of Christ. The enfleshed Word within and among us reminds us we are to be about beating swords into plowshares and pruning hooks and spears into pruning hooks, and no longer learning war. The problem with the fact that Christ has been coming back for so long is that many have given up on him. His followers interpreted his words to mean he would be right back. Believing this, they did not make long-range plans. They put all their energy into preparing for the end. All of Paul's letters were written with the second coming in plain view. However, a decade had passed, and then another, and another, the people who had actually known Jesus began to die off. Pretty soon the stories about him were being told by people who had known Jesus. The only reason we have Gospels at all is that someone finally worked up the nerve to say, we almost, all our witnesses are gone. We ought to get this stuff down on paper while we can. So for the next 12 months, we lectionary faith traditions will journey with Matthew. Matthew's very name, meaning gift of God, suggests our searching for understanding the signs of the time will finally show up as a gift. Unearned, undeserved, unexpected. While the author of Matthew primarily wanted to tell the story of Jesus, he had to assuage those who were frightened and tired of waiting, to people desperately wanting to know whether Jesus' delay was part of the master plan or whether he was missing in action. Was Jesus really coming back to pull them from the edges of the abyss where they were clinging to life, or were they just going to hang there until the fingers gave out and they crashed on top of the mounting exhausted bodies at the bottom? Matthew provides the answer to us in today's reading. Therefore you must also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. Authentic life happens not according to our calendars or our phones, but while we are at our desks, in class, at lunch meeting, checking our email, running to the grocery store, or the many ways we spend our public hours. As the saying goes, life is what happens while we're making plans. I cannot enter into my calendar 11 a.m. Monday, December 2nd, appointment with Jesus, because that's not the me or you Jesus comes to. That public you, that you present to others while you are out doing whatever it is you do in the world. Pull together as best you can so you pass for normal. No, it's after you have wept over a life choice your child has made, after you have argued with your spouse but cannot even remember what it was about, after you have sat mindlessly before the television hoping that drink will bring a little relief, after you have struggled to balance a non-balanceable checkbook, hoping for nothing more than a few hours sleep. It is then that you are most vulnerable. It is then, in that darkness, God is most likely to come when you least expect God. Matthew also speaks to us as a parish today, inviting us to let go of our anxiety about what lies ahead for St. Philip's. It invites us to accept and enter our journey with our interim rector, just as we are called to enter Advent, as a time to discern what is most important, to identify our gifts and strengths with which God has blessed us, but also, and more importantly, has blessed us to be God's agents, carrying the gospel into the world, a world that so desperately needs to know and experience the ever-waiting, ever-outstretched, loving arms of God, and to hear the assuring words of Julian of Norwich, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. Only then do we as individuals realize the abundance God offers to us compared to the mere pile of possessions we have spent a lifetime protecting. Only then do we as a parish realize we do not exist for ourselves, but are called to proclaim to the whole world the birth we will celebrate in this space in a few weeks. It is only then you may go skydiving, Rocky Mountain climbing, and go 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. It is only then that you may love deeper and speak sweeter and give forgiveness you've been denying, to be the spouse that most of the time you haven't been, or to be a friend would like to have. The threat is not outside the door. It is within us. in our unfounded fears and our misguided defenses. The Son of Man comes in an unexpected hour. Keep awake, not to keep him out, but to let in the one who brings light into your darkest corners. To let in the one who, out of all the interpretations of the past and in face of all the possibilities of the future, he beckons you to live now. To let in the one who comes to give you freedom to live like you were dying.